very exciting round of programs today and a lot to talk about. So make sure you don't miss this. I'll be introducing her shortly. We'll be talking about a number of things. But first of all, I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias Flex Dan for Gynaco Online News, bringing you straight talk, another show, another edition. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Today is going to be a current program, current affairs program, as well as we'll be talking about torture. I have a special guest who we'll be introducing shortly. And welcome to the studio, Elizabeth Sturley. She is a legal fellow working with WAVE, Women's Associations for Victims Empowerment, one of the civil society organizations in this country. She's a researcher. She's doing a lot of different work. She's been all over the country. The last time we were in Janjanbureh together, right? Last weekend.
Yes.
Yes. How are you?
Human Rights Festival.
At the Human Rights Festival, exactly. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Perhaps you can tell our listeners a little bit more about you. Who is Elizabeth Sturley? And perhaps from there I can connect the dots as to why we've got you into this in the studio today.
Amazing. Yes. Well, I am from the United States of America. I currently am a law student at Columbia University in New York City. And I am studying human rights and international law and have a background and passion for transitional justice and women's rights issues, which has led me to be in the Gambia.
Fantastic. And you've been in the Gambia for how long?
This is my almost 10 weeks now.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So human rights, transitional justice, that's your thing. We're going to be talking about a position paper which she's just written not too long ago and launched at WAVE's week-long Human Rights Festival. And we're going to talk about that. It's about torture. How can we make sure that torture is a thing of the past? We all know the Gambia's TJ process has suffered from torture. It's been one of the things we've even got a law now in place. But that's not all what we're going to talk about. I'm going to bring you some of the information, some of the current topics, which definitely we need to talk about. Everybody knows the much talked about FGM bill is on the cards. We are going to talk about that, as well as the protest that took place on Monday. Monday was a very eventful day because not only was there a report about the FGM bill, and it's important that we clarify that because a lot of people feel that the bill has been passed or the bill has been sort of rejected. But that's not the case. The bill right now has only gone through its report, is what has been adopted by Parliament. 35 members voted in favor for the bill, for the report to be adopted by Parliament, and 17 members voted against the report to be adopted by members. 2 members abstained. They were present in the chambers and they decided to abstain. And that is Honorable, they are both NRP members, Honorable Seni Jawara and Honorable Samba Jalo. Those are the 2 who decided to abstain. They were inside present. But not only that, we had 17 members who voted against the bill. 2 members were apparently not in from the, because today I made a little bit of research. We got in touch with the National Assembly's clerk and to find out what is the record of votes and proceedings. The record of votes and proceedings is usually voted in the next day after every parliamentary session. So when I got this, I got to realize that 2 members were actually away, absent with permission. That means they had requested that they would be away on that day for one reason or the other. And it's important that we set this record straight. These 2 members who were not in the country or away with permission, maybe in the country, but they were absent with permission, are Honorable Sheriff Saad and Honorable for Bundunka Jamme, Honorable Jamme for Bundunka Kunda. Those are the two members who were actually absent with permission. But information that I have, which I verified by watching the votes, is that Honorable Yaya Menteng Sanyang, he decided to vacate the chambers for one reason or the other. So he didn't vote. But he was present in that session. We did see him at the earlier stages of that session. Why he decided to run away when it was voting time, that's probably something he needs to tell the public. Honorable Yaya Menteng Sanyang, you know, you're one of those who can give it and take it. So please, come and tell us, how comes when it was time to vote for the report to be adopted, you decided not to excuse yourself from Parliament? You didn't vote. When your citizens, your electorates voted for you to go and represent them and vote. But what else happened? What did we find when we kept looking into this to see how parliamentarians voted? The majority of those who voted in favor for the report to be adopted are NPP members. All NPP members, all of them, every single one of them. 2 UDP members voted for the report to be adopted. And those 2 members were part of this committee that prepared the report. You had a number of independent members who voted for the report to be adopted. Number of them, good number of them. We'll be bringing out the full names, but I'm just giving you some feelers so people can know what's happening. How did they vote? What about those who voted against? Definitely, we'll talk about them. Mostly UDP. Apart from the 2 UDP members who I mentioned who voted for the report, the rest of the UDP members voted against. Even members who, my member, Sani Mentereng, Honorable Fatu Chan, who is part of that committee, she voted against her own report. She voted against her report. Of course, the No to Alliance members, they all voted against the report to be adopted. You see? Some independent members too, Kante for Busumbala, and the rest of the UDP members, they all voted against the report. They said this report shouldn't have been adopted. But why are we raising this? Why are we raising this? This is the important thing. What does the report actually? I must remind people that on that same very day, the Speaker had to leave Parliament, go and meet the protesters, get their petition, and then come back. And he was in time, he came back just in time to preside over the vote. The Speaker came back just in time to preside over the vote. So it was a very polarizing day, a very tough day indeed. So when the Speaker did come back, and then they did voted in favor, 35 for, 17 against, 2 abstained, 1 ran away, 2 were absent with permission. But what does this report actually say? What is so polarizing about this report? We will talk about it. We will highlight what the report says. And most importantly, we also have another important news, which I will break after highlighting what the report said. So the report, it first of all recommended that FGM, the ban on FGM should not be repealed. This is the one most important part of the recommendations. To clearly ban any attempt to medicalize the practice of FGM or C. There are many, many other more recommendations, but this is generally the nuts and cranny of it. But the chair who actually tabled this report, Honorable Amadou Kamara, he was the target of attack, bullying, taunting, which was very unfortunate. And I want to take this platform to condemn that action. I reached out to the Honorable Chair himself, Honorable Amadou Kamara, who bravely defended his report. And for defending that report, he's been facing bullying. But I got in touch with him, and he did inform me that he was not physically assaulted. However, he was bullied and, all altercation. He is strong, he says. He's still strong. So we wish him well, we wish his family well. But that is the latest. Before I jump into the issue of the protest which took place on Monday as well. A very eventful Monday. What's your take on I don't know if you want to chime in about the FGM report. So now the next stage is that on the 16th is when the bill will come. Parliament has adopted this report. Normally, this report is what should guide Parliament in the consideration stage when they go clause by clause. And that should happen on the 16th. What's your take? I've said a lot of different things, so you can feel free to pick on anyone you feel. Yeah, go on.
Yes, no, definitely. And thank you so much for the comprehensive update on what's been happening this week. WAVE has been a part of the civil society organization's push to keep the ban on FGMC in place. So that is something we are absolutely in favor of keeping in place and against the medicalization. So we were very happy about the report.
Okay.
And I'm dismayed and disheartened to hear about the bullying that has been happening surrounding that. That's very disappointing to hear. But I'm glad that they were able to kind of stay strong and defend that and defend the women's rights, human prioritize that above everything. And we are still both, hoping and also rallying to make sure that this ban of FGMC stays in place, as we believe it's incredibly important for the Gambia as a country and for people around the country and around the world to have this as the ban was really inspirational around the world, and so keeping that in place is incredibly important.
Indeed, I completely agree, and I think the ban, according to what the report has said, I think it's a very comprehensive report. I know some people haven't had the chance to look at the report, but certainly I would recommend you to take a look at that report. If you get in touch with me, I can share that report. As I was saying, also, on that same day, on that same very Monday, just before the Speaker came to preside over the voting for the report on the FGM ban bill being repealed, he had to go out and meet protesters. This goes to show you how important protest is in any society. Protest is extremely important. Now, when the Speaker went out there, he met the protesters, they handed over their petition, and he came, and the first thing he mentioned was that he had just gone out to receive the petition. So this goes to show you just how important protest is. On the line, I'm going to call one of my colleagues who was at the protest. He's going to tell us what he saw and how he found the protest. The president of Team Gomsabopa, Killer Ace, I'll be calling him right now to find out how he found the protest. It seemed like a good turnout from most of all indications from what we've seen on social media. But the protesters are saying that they are not going to relent. They are going to continue going on. Hello, welcome to Straight Talk. Welcome to the show. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir. Hello. Can you hear me nice and clear?
Yes, we can get you nice and clear. Killer Ace, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you, God. You know, it's been a very hard warm day, but, you know, we are doing fine. Thank God.
Indeed. It's a pleasure to have you on the line. Killer Ace is the president of Team Gomsa Bopa. I also happen to be the spokesperson of Team Gomsa Bopa. But I didn't go to the protest on Monday. But guess who went? Killer Ace was there. Killer, how was the protest?
Yes, thank you so much, Flex. Today I will be the spokesperson. I will take your job. So the protest, you know, it was orderly, it was civil. As far as turnout was concerned, it could have been better, but it was still good for the cause, nonetheless. And I believe that the message was very clear, as those that attended, you know, were very, you know, clear.
How many people were there, would you say? How many people were there, would you say?
I'm not really good at counting, but maybe a few hundred were there. You know, a few hundred. 200,
300.
And they all, each and everybody that came was very, you know, energetic and, you know, seemed like they were ready for the cause and they voice heard.
Fantastic. So it was they handed over their petition, and the protesters say that they might be going again if they don't heed to their demands. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I believe that is the right way. You know, I do believe that consistency is very important. You know, and the more.
Oh, it seems like we've lost our caller there. We're gonna try and get him again. That was Killer Ace that was on the line with us. Let's see if we can get him on the line one more time.
In the interim, I can also just note that WAVE, the Women's Association for Victims Empowerment, also has a position paper about our position on the FGMC issue as well.
Fantastic.
People are interested and talking about
exactly. And did you guys manage to submit it to the
that was submitted,
National Assembly?
I believe it was written in early June. I believe. It was right at the beginning of my time here, so I wasn't a part of that, but I've joined the strategic communication since.
Killer, sorry we lost you there. Sorry we lost you there.
Seems like the network.
Yes, seems like the network. So I said, I think you were just talking about, you know, the protest, and I was asking you a few questions, and you were saying that was the right way to go. I'm sorry we got interrupted there, but that the protesters would go again, and you were commenting on that.
Yes, absolutely. If for them to go back into the streets, as I believe it adds on to the pressure that has already been started, you know. And as we understand, Gambia, you know, it's we have so many issues happening at the same time, and if the opportunity slips, people will be focused on other stuff. So it's better to be consistent, you know, with the approach and continue, you know, advocating, you know, in such a manner, you know. I am definitely in support of, you know, that.
And then my last question I wanted to ask you is about, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Jainaba Sonko for QTV statement about the protesters that, you know, saying Sache is insulting, that the police could have taken action against the protesters. What's your take? What's your reaction?
For saying Sache.
Yes, I don't know if you've seen it or you haven't seen it. It's been trending all over social media.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been trending all over social media.
I mean, if that's exactly what's been said, I am definitely, you know, I wish I could laugh. I'm just not in the laughing mood, but I would love to laugh at that, because to me, Sache, if you translate it into English, it just means thief, and thief is not derogatory if a person steals or if it's in the act of stealing. You know, so I don't think no way that is offensive.
Okay.
You know, in no way it's not offensive. You know, even if they can make it Sache times 3, you know, it would even be better for people like me. It's very straightforward, like, hey, you are stealing our money and adding it to your salaries and your benefits. So you satire, you taking from the people to make yourself more wealthier technically. So I don't see anything offensive about that. I think as Gambians we should loosen up. We are in a different mindset world. And not everything translates to negativity. Especially when it comes to. I didn't see anybody who was disobedient. I didn't hear anybody insulting. As much as I am not an organizer, but I'm just being unbiased.
From what you saw.
I didn't see anybody being uncivil. And from what I saw. So I don't think them saying Sanchez should be a highlight over the 99.9 more important stuff that was, that brought people together.
Thank you.
Definitely,
Thank you so much for talking.
I thought it was going to be something else. I was going to, and one thing I would just like to close off with.
Yes, please.
As Gambian peoples, I do believe that we should change the narration of what protest is about, because I'm not really satisfied with people sacrificing their time and energy to organize and go to the street for a cause that should benefit everybody, and people fold their hands and treat it like it is not a priority. I do believe when people call out in the streets, not for other stuff there, because even me, I don't go attend everything, but for important, genuine national causes, I believe that every Gambian in his capacity who in large numbers, because the bigger the numbers, the more important it seems, and it also shows that the people that are affected by this particular situation are actually, coming to participate. So I encourage Gambians to, take advantage of the democratic space and, contribute towards protest and, the mobilization in not just this protest, even the Nawek Defadai protest and protest in general. Overall we achieve the objective sometimes, but the people that we are doing it for don't seem to be really there for us, when we really need them, So I would really appeal on Gambians, let's learn from our brother and sister countries who use their fundamental right to assembly, just like how it's your right to vote, to make their voices heard peacefully.
Indeed. Peacefully, and that's all what we're asking for. Thank you so much. That was the voice of Killer Ace, the president. The president of Team Gomsabopa. Thank you so much for talking to me.
You were welcome, my brother. Thank you anytime, bro. Thank you.
Cheers. And I also want to talk to the protesters themselves. I have one of them who I've spoken to just before the coming on the show. And then from there, we are going to segue onto our main topic. Half of an hour we'll be dedicating on this. We're going to be talking about torture. Definitely, that's on the line. One of the leaders of the protest who was there, he was one of those leaders that were protesting, and I managed to talk to him earlier. Hello, Lamin, how are you doing? Welcome to Straight Talk. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you here loud and clear.
Wonderful, fantastic. And welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Yusuf. Thank you for having me, at your show.
Indeed. And first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on having a peaceful protest. I observed that nobody was, harmed, and there were no arrests. Perhaps, if I've mistaken, you can tell me. But generally, it was a peaceful protest. We have your initial thoughts, and maybe you can clarify whether if what I am insinuating was true, because I wasn't there, but from what I've seen, I've not seen any arrest or any disruptions.
Of course, Yusuf, it was a well-planned, protest that went very well. That was very cordial. If you can see from the videos when you are not there, but you can see the cordial relationship that the police manifested with the protesters, and we were very much elated with that. Yeah, I believe there was one incident that I cannot still verify, that a lady said, whether she was assaulted by an officer and, that got her bruised around her neck. But, such things are unavoidable in situations of those shots. The people were many, and then the push and pull sometimes, might lead to shot. But, the general intention was to have it, as peaceful as possible. And I believe that was really achieved. And then we are all happy as the organizing committee members.
Fantastic. So all of you are very happy, and we've heard your president in actually when he was talking to the media, and I think it was Gambian Gambian talents. He was talking to Gambian talents. And he did mention that you guys would come again if your demands were not met. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about what your demands are, so that we can know exactly what those demands are. Perhaps maybe that could be somewhere you could come in for us.
Yes, we have 8 demands, but these demands are tailored, we have planned this protest, towards the bills. That is the judicial officers' pension, remuneration, and other entitlement bills, as well as the National Assembly members' salaries and pensions bill. So these are the bills that we rise up against, and these are the bills that we, tailored our demands and concerns around. So the first demand, which is the National Assembly members should withdraw the National Assembly members to withdraw the salaries and pensions bill, and then the second one is withdraw the judicial officers' remuneration and other entitlement bills. The third one, the fair compensation for all public servants. The fourth one, equitable allocation of natural resources. And then the fifth one, we have accountability for National Assembly members. The sixth one is promotion of social justice. And then the seventh one is National Assembly members to engage their constituencies on critical issues. That is the bills. And then the final one is for the National Assembly members to introduce new pay scale that will address the salaries and pension of, across all sectors in this country, both, those in the government as well as the private sector employees. These are the demands that we've submitted to the members of Parliament, most especially to the Speaker, that is Fabakar from Monjada. And our position is this: if they do not adhere to our demands, we are going to go back to the people, since this is a people power movement. Since when we started this, we went to the people to converge behind us to ensure that their frustration is heard at the Parliament. We will ensure that when it is not heard, we go back to the same people to tell them that wish us to go on with this, what we are going to do. If they wish us to continue with the protest, we will ensure that the coordination is rightfully there to ensure that we also request for another permit to have them on the street again.
So you said how many weeks? 2 weeks? Or how long?
Well, these demands are like, since these demands will be tabled most especially as possible. So we are going to be very vigilant. We are going to be observant. If the bills are introduced into the Parliament and the voted yes for the bills to pass, to become laws in the Parliament, that is something that we are going to frown, and that is something that we are going to go. That will propel our next step, forward. But right now, we do not have a time frame. We are observant of the situation in the National Assembly.
Okay. So your president did say it would be a nationwide protest.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any last words that you want to? How did you feel about the turnout? Any last words that you want to say to Gambians who are listening to you? So, especially, I wanted to ask you. Sorry, before I go to the last words, Jaina Basonko for QTV. She made some statement regarding the protesters' use of the word "sache," that was an offensive word, that shouldn't have been used, and that the police would end up being the ones to blame had they retaliated, when in fact the youths are the ones being irresponsible. What's your reaction to
Yusuf,
that?
we are not bothered by those kind of comments because we know that corruption does not only benefit the perpetrators, but also certain elements who also abated and aided corruption practices. Geneva's accusation of this, qualifies her as part of those who are not ready to, combat corruption in this country. But are we surprised as the organizing team committee of this protest? We are not surprised. Without corruption, some of those so-called individuals will not be in the position that they are, and serving as a propagandist agent for institutions will not be condoned by the youth again. We are not deterred. We are committed and we are strong with whatever that we are sharing with the masses right now. We are not deterred by what the likes of Geneva are saying. For corrupt individuals in this country, and whatever that they are doing, let them continue doing that. But the youths have rising from slumber. The youths know what is happening, and they are going to hold their leaders to account. Whosoever want to interfere with that will see the other sides of the youth. And Geneva most, this is from such a language. This is a genuine move that rises to address the needs of ordinary Gambians, using those irresponsible words. I might use her word to, refer to herself as well. Using those irresponsible words to attach to a genuine process of this sort, we are going to condone that, and then we are not going to accept that in any case.
Thank you. Any last words that you may want to add?
Yeah, we just have to, say thank you so much for the media, most especially your media and every other media that try to amplify the voices of the ordinary Gambians, because we cannot do this alone. We live in a world of media, and then the Gambian medias have done their part. So we also want to hear from the members of the National Assembly, because the concerns are all over. The comments. If you go to social media, you see that people are venting their frustration. People at home and abroad. So they should listen to people, because they are there for the people. They must not think that they are there for themselves alone. So that is my last or final words that I will share with your audience right now.
Thank you so much. That was the voice of Lamin Mane. Lamin Mane is one of the protest leaders for this. They call themselves Concerned Citizens, group of protesters that took the Banjul by storm, if I could say, and stood out. I want to say, first of all, I think Jainaba has every right to express herself freely. And I first of all want to say that. Although her comments can give, empower or embolden security officials to, assault protesters for saying nothing which is illegal. Sache is not an illegal term. It means thief. And they were using that to describe the fact that they felt that, no, this is not fair. It's tantamount to theft, that the elites were enriching themselves. Meanwhile, the poor, they were not having that same, privilege. So first of all, that's what I would want to say on my regard with that. And I don't think personally she means any harm. I know her personally, and I think she's a very good media personnel. I don't want to be on this platform be berating her, but I clearly wanted to make sure that we understand that we need to encourage dissent within the limits of the law. All right? So dissent is very important for democracy to thrive. It forces us to think and reflect. So it's very important. And if we allow the citizen space to dissent, then you could see that it acts as an outlet for a lot of the venting from citizens. You cannot keep people compressed and they cannot express themselves. They cannot freely say what they want to say. So those are things that are very important. The issue on the journalist who was allegedly assaulted, I am aware of that, and she's my colleague. I did message on her wall when she posted that she was apparently malhandled, and she showed a picture of some bruising on her neck. Of course, I want to condemn that. My colleague being malhandled, I think that shouldn't have come to that. It should have just been dealt with amicably rather than her being assaulted by the police. So, National Assembly members, you did hear. They said, the last caller, Lamin Mane, from the protest group Concerned Citizens, he said they want to hear from you, National Assembly members. This is your chance. Dial 504-7877. 504-7877. You are listening to Straight Talk on West Coast Radio 95.3 FM and streaming live on YouTube, Gainako Online Newspaper. We're now going to turn on to the interview, which we have right now, but we will be taking callers later on. So, especially if you're a National Assembly member, please feel free to call and let's hear from you about what the protesters have demanded. They've given their 8 demands, and we've aired it all here so you could hear. Now we're going to turn our attention to my special guest here who has been in the studio with me. But I want to talk about some of the also very trending issues. There's been this protest in Gambia. Anything you want to say, comment on that?
I can't say I'm so familiar or so tapped into
That's
the
fine.
Gambian trending scene, but I'm grateful to hear from you today and learn from you. And I think I agree about the importance of the right to protest, the importance of peaceful protesting and making your voice heard, and also about the importance of dissent and allowing people to have those disagreements, while also, of course, condemning any violence committed by the police against any protesters.
Yeah,
I think that's all.
Yeah, I think it all ties into. You see, sometimes we need to look at things holistically. It all ties into security sector reforms as well.
Yes,
which is all part of the TJ issue. Security officers are always. They say they are being trained on, crowd control. That's happening all the time. We get a lot of reports that they are being trained on crowd control. But when do we actually get to see what all this training is, the value for this training? When do Gambians start to benefit the value of this training? It's days like on Monday that Gambians benefit from this training. You see, so I think I would also want to commend the police. I must commend the police for having a peaceful protest and not assaulting anybody apart from my one colleague who was assaulted. But that was not the PIU officers. If I want to, what I would sort of understand it, that was the security officers at the National Assembly. Okay, so we will be turning our attention to the issue of torture. Before. The Gambia didn't have any torture laws not too long ago, until in 2022, 2023, when the torture, just last year, when we had the torture bill being approved and passed here in this country, just last year. So the issue with that is first of all, I would like to bring you in. You've done a lot of study on the Gambia and torture. And we'll delve into your recommendations as well. But I just wanted us to set the ground and to discuss the issue of torture in the Gambia. It's been something that has been prevalent in the previous administration. We've seen a number of persons who they say have been tortured. And even we've seen convictions of 2 persons. And most of the time, they put in torture. It's one of the charges. So perhaps I think that's a very good way for us to start. What are the laws on torture in the Gambia? What have you found? What is our current legal architecture? If someone was to be tortured right now, how would that?
Thank you so much. So a couple of quick notes. So there's a few different ways that laws work. There's different levels of laws. And one of the key international laws, treaties on torture is called the Convention Against Torture. And it's torture, also other inhuman, degrading, or ill treatment or punishment. Is the kind of full title.
Full title, yes.
And the Gambia actually ratified that in 2018. So there was a legal avenue to punish torture in the Gambia. But in 2023 is when the Gambia domesticated those laws. So put anti-torture legislation into the domestic legal code. One other quick, I won't go too deep into this because it's a very technical legal issue, but actually even before that, because torture is there's an absolute prohibition on torture. This is a worldwide prohibition. It has actually come into what we call customary international law.
Customary international law.
So customary international law are for those crimes that are so heinous, so atrocious, that even if there's not a specific written law, it's still prohibited across the entire world. And there was a case, the Toure case in the Gambia, that allowed for customary international law to be a part of domestic law.
Which Toure case is this?
This is, and now you're gonna test me without notes, but
I just wanted to get an idea, but just
I don't want to mispronounce anything, but
Yankuba.
Yes.
Yankuba Ture.
Yes.
Exactly. Wonderful. Well, you know your stuff. You know your stuff. Go on.
Yes, and so that actually, in the decision for that case, the Supreme Court said that customary international law is a part of Gambian law. However, actually implementing that is a little trickier. And so that's why it's so important that the Gambia created the domestic anti-torture legislation in 2023.
Which was just passed in 2023.
Yes. And perfect. So, and as I wrote about in my position paper, we absolutely commend the Gambia for both ratifying the Convention Against Torture and creating these domestic processes for punishing perpetrators of torture.
Thank you so much. And that is the voice of Elizabeth Sturley. Elizabeth Sturley is a researcher from Columbia Law School. Yeah, and wow, there's something that is very interesting here that I saw. She actually created her own major called Justice and Human Rights. How does that work? How do you create your own major?
Yes, so that was actually before my law degree. That was during my undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
I went to Amherst College in Massachusetts in the United States. And I realized I was so interested in all these interdisciplinary ideas. So I was taking classes in legal studies, history, Black studies, political science, and I realized they all had the same theme. They were all related to justice and human rights issues. And so I actually had to petition the school to allow me to actually create my own major.
Did you have a protest or just a petition?
One woman protest.
Well done.
Had to write a whole essay about why I needed to do this major. And they ended up approving it, and I had multiple academic advisors helping me create this to really study about atrocities that were happening worldwide.
And now this is a major which is it's continuing. People are going on it, or how is it? Is it still alive?
I don't know how.
Super interested.
Go to Amherst College.
Okay,
they'd love to have you.
maybe you can petition for me to get a place in there.
Exactly.
All right. But actually, I just want people to understand why we are talking to Elizabeth Sturley as a researcher. We didn't just pick her out from nowhere. She's got a lot of experience. She's gone to, you've done your master's and you're now working on your, is that like a doctorate or PhD level?
It's called a Juris Doctorate.
Yeah, we were having a chat about this, but it blows my mind. Go on, tell me.
It's a little confusing, the U.S. education system. So I completed my undergraduate, my bachelor's degree, and then turned to my master's degree. And actually my master's degree was specifically in transitional justice and human rights law. That was in Geneva, Switzerland, where I was so lucky to be surrounded by amazing international human rights organizations. And then after that, I went back to the United States to go get my law degree, which is separate from your bachelor's degree in the US. So it's a 3-year program to get your Juris Doctorate.
Juris Doctorate. So that's what she's studying for.
Yes.
So we're going to go right into this. And one of the things which I would highlight, one of the statements actually is this in this study paper. Now she has published a research paper with WAVE, Women's Association for Victims Empowerment. And it's got this catchy quote: torture happens in secret, in closed places, out of sight. Opening places of detention to independent oversight is one of the most effective strategies to prevent torture and ill treatment. Here that gives an illustrative examples of places of deprivation of liberty, and these are places where torture can happen or does happen. Police stations, everybody knows. We just probably don't have a recorder there recording it. Pre-trial detention centers. Remand prisons. So many people are kept in remand for so long and not taken to court. These are very serious things too. Prisons, juvenile detention centers, border police facilities. It goes on, and even unofficial places of detention. These are all places where torture is happening, or was happening, or we know happens. So, this position paper is calling for independent bodies to be set up. It's called OPCAT, which is the, let's get it, optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. OPCAT. It's got a very long name, isn't it?
Very long name, and lots of acronyms used.
And lots of acronyms. So in your study, basically, you highlight that 94 countries have already, ratified this protocol. And what is this protocol? Perhaps we can talk about the protocol. What is it?
Yes. So just for context, so Gambia has already ratified the Convention Against Torture.
Exactly.
And then this is an additional piece,
Optional.
so the optional protocol, that creates some other ways to tackle the issue of torture. This optional protocol, or OPCAT, is all about prevention. So it is actually one of the only human rights treaties to exist that focuses specifically on prevention. And it does this by laying out implementation measures for each country that ratifies it to take.
Okay.
And there are two key parts of this. The first is creating a national preventive mechanism in the Gambia, or in the country. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's all about creating an independent oversight body. As the quote you mentioned talked about, which was, that quote was from the Association for the Prevention of Torture, which is an amazing organization working on these issues. But torture happens when people can't see it. It happens in those secret places, those dark places where there aren't cameras, there aren't people filming. And so by creating an independent oversight body, that is the best way to have monitoring to make sure that torture isn't happening in those places. And the second part of it is creating a collaboration with the United Nations Subcommittee on the Prevention of Torture, which is another form of an oversight body that is from the UN, that can also then go into these places, as you were mentioning, detention spaces, prisons, police stations, and other even unofficial detention sites, to also have visits to see what's happening. And through these two bodies, they can they're investigative bodies, so they can see what's going on. They can produce reports to say, here's what we should do, here's what's happening. But their goal is not to condemn, their goal is not to kind of put any country on trial or shame any country for what's going on. The goal is to create collaborative units to really make the hashtag never again apply when it comes to torture.
Thank you. That's a very good explanation. We actually have something similar in Gambia, I do know that there are bodies, including the Justice, MOJ, and some organization, NHRC, I believe, and Parliament actually do visit. They go around visiting, and then they call them in, and then they question them, because I'm there when they're having these conversations, and I write about those things sometimes when they do happen. So, but how effective they have been, I'm not too sure. For example, some of the issues like ventilation in prisons is a huge issue. Young people who shouldn't have been there, there are people held in remand for so long, and other things, of course, and I'm sure torture is happening, but whether that's also been reported. So we are running out of time. We only have 7 minutes to go. 7 more minutes to go. You're listening to Straight Talk live on West Coast Radio 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, and that was the voice of Elizabeth Sturley, researcher working with WAVE from Columbia Law School, right? Fantastic. And we were talking about torture. You can call us in the last few minutes to talk to us about anything that we've been talking about on the program, 504-7877, 504-7877. Do you think the protesters were well behaved? I know a lot of people are probably watching the England game right now. That's why people aren't calling. So, but I'm sure for those of you who might not be watching the game, call this number. Let's hear you. Let's hear what you think about the FGM report that was passed. Is that report, do you agree with the recommendations? FGM should not be decriminalized. It should continue to remain be banned and then punishable offense. And also there should not be any medicalization. Tell us, what do you think? Do you agree? You know, and all the brouhaha that's been going on in there. And what we've talked about, how the members voted. You know, I don't know if your member was, I know my member, Sani Mentereng, she didn't vote for the report, which I was quite disappointed because of, one, she's a member of the committee, and two, I really expected that she would be one of those members who would try to protect the girl child in the country, you know, because I know her. And I think that she's a very, you know, personable member, and she's been doing well. I've come to one of her activities. So I was expecting that she would stand on the right side of history, but perhaps she still has a chance to redeem herself on the very important day. Perhaps you want to talk to us about the protesters. Yeah? So those are the topics today. One, it's the FGM bill. Clarify the report for the FGM bill, which was adopted by parliamentarians on Monday. Then the same Monday, there was a protest against two bills. The one bill was about pensions and salaries for National Assembly members, and the other one was for judicial officers, the remuneration bill for them, and other benefits. So, well, I am sure people are watching the game. Unfortunately, people just don't have time to listen to the program or to call. Perhaps some people, I know they are always listening, but they didn't call.
All the more special for the people who are listening.
Yeah,
today.
Exactly. All the more special. Maybe you want to talk to Elizabeth Sturley here. Huh? Maybe you have some questions for her.
I'm here.
Like about her experience in the Gambia. Let's talk about WAVE's last week. They had a very eventful week last week. Was it last week or week before now? Time seems to be
has gone wild, but yeah, last week.
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
So actually, that I'll mention that because this didn't come up earlier, but we actually planned our Human Rights Week to coincide with June 26th, which is the United Nations designated day for the International Day in support of victims of torture. So we purposely had our Human Rights Festival coincide with that week to really uplift the voices of victims and survivors of torture and to advocate for both accountability for torture as well as prevention of torture in the future, which is what WAVE's position paper was about with OPCAD. So it was an important week.
Very important week. Very important week. And I think if I can just give a little summary of how I saw it as well, because I was there all the way.
Yes,
all
you
the step of the way,
We're
every
lucky
step
to have
of the
you
way.
with us.
Yes, I came to the first day, the fun day, which a good day, good way to start. So it was just a relaxing. Some victims, and advocates who were championing transitional justice. They came at Q City where they had a fun day, and we published some of the pictures about that. And then 2 days later or so.
Monday.
2 days later, yes, Monday, perfect, was when there was a discussion, in-house discussion on was it about the Psalm and the SPO bills?
Yes, about accountability mechanisms in the country and kind of victims' views and a dialogue about that.
Yes, and you also, you talked to victims. You had a little meditation. Was it a meditation?
Yes, we worked on grounding practices and the importance of what being present in a given moment can look like.
Yes.
And then we learned some dances and martial arts from the Afro-Brazilian traditions from the period of enslavement. Yeah. And some of that also brought a lighthearted mood, and that was also with the victims.
Yes.
Wave is working.
Fantastic. Yes. And I think they picked the speakers who would speak in 2 days later.
Yes.
And that session, you also did present this position paper, which we were talking about. There was a stakeholders dialogue.
Yes.
With regards to the team as well, which was on collaborating, partnership. So you had the MOJ there, you had civil society, IHRDA was there. I would have brought the gentleman, but obviously I just have to do my homework on him. And,
no, you're good. Yeah, we had the idea. Importance of that. We had the NHRC. We had victims' voices as well, as you mentioned, MOJ, people, different stakeholders coming together to talk about why accountability is so important, for whom is accountability, how it's for victims, survivors, but also for the country as a whole, and then how do we actually go about doing this? And we actually had someone working for a U.S. organization talking about a torture case upcoming in the U.S. from
the Samuel Correa case.
Yes, the exact.
I might be
Michael Correa.
Michael Correa. Yes. Michael Correa.
Yes, coming up in the U.S. in September, using the idea of universal jurisdiction for accountability for torture.
I might be going for the case if everything goes well. So fingers crossed, and I would love to go and report on it and definitely come back and continue the work that I'm doing here.
I'm sure. Maybe I'll have to come visit Colorado. In
Colorado.
You
never know. Wow. And I think the last day was even the festival when there was a big fanfare at Janjambure, where we all descended on Janjambure, and there was a big festival, kankurang, all kind of things. You had a snake all around your neck.
Snake around my neck.
Yeah, geez. Check that out.
It was such a great day. I learned so much about.
Fantastic. So not only that, it's also important to note that there were some people from the Kermot Ali community who came, and they were there. And this part of reintegrating them back into that community, because they have been ostracized. They have been, can you believe, we have Gambians who have been deported from their community. Lots of them. I'm not sure if they're up to 100, but there or thereabouts. Quite a number of them. And they're currently in exile in Senegal. They are trying to get back. So WAVE is working hard, trying to reintegrate them as well. And this thing is moving forward. Slowly, we will get there. Your last words before I close the program for our listeners and all our viewers. What's your last word, Elizabeth?
No, I'm just so grateful for the chance to learn with and learn from so many Gambian people who I've met here on an individual level, as well as with the amazing civil society organizations here, people from MOJ as well, and just learn and thank you so much for welcoming me into these spaces and having me get to see what transitional justice looks like on the ground. And I am so inspired by the work that is happening here, and also cautiously optimistic about the future for the Gambia, and really just doing all that I can to promote the ideals of human rights and the values that I see here, and keeping my fingers crossed for things like the FGMC ban to be upheld, and for the future of the transitional justice process. Most importantly, keeping survivors at the center of that process and making sure they are seen and heard and get the justice that they deserve.
Thank you so much for being with us, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me.
We really appreciate your time coming all the way to Gambia, spending your time with Gambia. doing this transitional justice work, you know, and even coming to the studio here with us. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor, alias FlexDan. This brings us to the end of another edition of Straight Talk. Make sure you don't miss next week. Last week, we brought you the KMC Mayor. Today, we talked about trending issues and we brought a special guest. Next week, I'll be bringing another special guest. Lamin K. Sadi is going to be with me. I'm going to try to get him, one of the advisors to the president. What are they doing? How is work going? What are they advising the president? We'll be talking to him about many other things. I'm your host, Yusuf Taylor.